Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Navi Rajjo is here. So he is a futurist and best-selling co-author of Jugaad Innovation. May we welcome him with a big round of applause, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. So let's wait until the slides comes up. It's a thrill for me to be here with you today to talk about my new book, which just came out. It's called The Frugal Economy. I immigrated to the US about 25 years ago with the H-1B visa. I spent 10 years working as an analyst at Forrester Research, a technology consulting firm based in Boston. The internet revolution was just starting. I helped Fortune 500 companies leverage latest technologies to drive exponential growth. I sincerely believed that more innovation leads to more economic growth. But 15 years ago, I realized that what matters is not the quantity of economic growth, but its quality. Sadly, our capitalist system is optimized to generate what I call bad growth, the kind that actually excludes people and depletes natural resources. For instance, in the US, the so-called richest country in the world, 2 Americans in 3 don't have $500 to cover a medical emergency. And in Europe, nearly a quarter of the population is facing poverty. Meanwhile, we are also running out of natural resources. By 2030, global demand for can't just do more with less. We Indians must learn to do better with less. We must build what I call a frugal economy that creates more economic and social and ecological value while minimizing waste and emissions. This frugal economy is no utopia. It is rapidly emerging and is supported by 3 core pillars that I will introduce today. And a new generation of conscious customers and innovators are accelerating the rise of the frugal economy. Enough with theory. I'm a very practical guy, so I'm going to regale you with a lot of inspiring examples to show how this new economy is emerging. So let's start with the first pillar, which is B2B or business-to-business sharing economy. What if companies stop competing and learn to cooperate and share resources? In Kalundborg, an eco-industrial park in Denmark, 12 co-located companies share their water, energy, and waste materials with each other as an integrated ecosystem. This mutually beneficial sharing is called industrial symbiosis. Flow2 is a B2B sharing marketplace that enables doctors and hospitals in Netherlands to share the underused equipment and services with each other. And they also help construction firms in Europe to share the underused equipment. Reapply is a Chicago-based startup that is helping states and cities across US, to build what they call reuse marketplaces. Each marketplace connects companies located in the same area so they can share and reuse each other's idle assets. By reusing existing resources, companies can reduce waste, which is great for the planet, and they reduce also their investments and their spending, which is good for the bottom line. So as you can see, reusing is frugal because it saves both money and the planet. The exciting thing is that here in India, there are many startups now who are using AI to build digital platforms that enable businesses, particularly small businesses, to share the underused manufacturing and logistics capacity. For instance, Vahak is an online marketplace that connects small truck owners with shippers. By aggregating multiple shipments in a single load, Vahak increases the truck's fill rates, which creates more income for small carriers, and they reduce carbon emissions by optimizing freight routes, which is great for the planet. Zwork is an on-demand industrial marketplace that connects thousands of small manufacturers across India with big companies. Think about it as the Amul and Amul's supply aggregation model applied to industry. By bringing in a steady stream of orders, Zwork enables small job shops across India to keep operating at full capacity. And today, they're also helping renewable energy providers in India to increase the manufacturing output without owning factories. So far, I shared examples of how companies can share their physical resources like unused equipment, truck space, or manufacturing capacity. But some visionary companies are sharing their intangible resources like intellectual property for the greater good. For instance, Levi's, the jeans maker, has open-sourced its innovative technologies to produce clothes with very little water. Rather than keeping its proprietary knowledge secretly, it shared it widely so that the whole apparel sector can become more sustainable. Way back in 2007, there was a landmark World Bank report that stated that if all Indian enterprises can costlessly, that means frugally, achieve national best practices based on knowledge already that exists in India, economic output could more than quintuple. That means that India can grow 5 times faster and bigger if Indian businesses were to share and reuse existing knowledge, especially traditional knowledge. And here, I think that, we always look at farmers as being a bit backward, but it turns out that Indian businesses in the services and industry sector can actually learn from Indian farmers who use an online platform called Digital Green to share agricultural best practices and replicate innovative farming techniques across regions. The consulting firm, PwC, estimates that the consumer-to-consumer sharing economy led by Uber and Airbnb will become a $335 billion market by 2025. B2B activities are much larger in volume and transactions in terms of volume and value compared to C2C activities. So I expect the B2B sharing economy to grow rapidly in the next decade and exceed at least $3 trillion in value. And India can get a big piece of this by building digital platforms and communities that enable Indian companies to share their physical and intangible resources. Now, let's look at the second pillar, my favorite one, distributed manufacturing. Especially with Trump's re-election, I think this pillar is going to be very important for India and the US, by the way. So today, if you look at the clothes and the smartphones that consumers in US and Europe are using, they are mass-produced in China, and then they travel thousands of miles by air and sea before they reach stores in New York and London. This mass manufacturing model is cost-efficient, but it is not sustainable, and it is not resilient because it's vulnerable to natural disasters and geopolitical tensions that could cripple global supply chains. I believe that India could pioneer a distributed manufacturing model where companies can produce goods and services closer to where customers live. Let me show you how decentralized production works. Avatar is a French startup that has developed an electric car that is 5 times lighter than typical EVs and consumes 3 times less energy. But the real innovation in this car is not its energy efficiency, but the way it is built. Unlike Tesla's Gigafactory, Avatar will use a distributed network of microfactories located in multiple regions across France. In each microfactory, no bigger than a large garage, local entrepreneurs will assemble these cars for local customers. The vision of Frédéric Mourier, the co-founder of Avatar, is to build a distributed manufacturing network that will create more economic and social value in multiple regions across France. Avatar has joined 14 other industrial startups in France to form the Micro Electric Vehicle, MEV Consortium, to share best practices and their capabilities. The MEV market is growing annually at 15% in France, particularly in Tier 2 and Tier 3 cities. So my message to you is this: don't scale up. Like Avatar, scale out your production to maximize local impact. The exciting news is that Indian startups like Lumas are building digital solutions to scale out manufacturing across India. Lumas is building a network of nano factories that produce personalized goods and services closer to local markets. Each nano factory can produce a variety of personalized products, such as healthy foods and cosmetics. These nano factories are more energy and water efficient and more flexible than big factories. And they also drastically reduce transportation cost and emissions. The reason I love really these examples is because I told you at the beginning of my talk that I arrived in the US when the internet revolution began. So what these Indian startups are doing is that they are leading the major epochal shift from centralized manufacturing to distributed manufacturing, just like the internet has enabled the shift from centralized computing to distributed computing in the last 30 years. Now, finally, let's look at the third pillar, which is looking at how India can go beyond the notion of sustainability and practice what I call triple regeneration. Regeneration is an advanced version of sustainability, and I'm just looking around because you might have seen a couple of panels, it says regenerate the planet. So, and that's what I'm going to build upon, right, is to show that how we can regenerate not only the planet, but 2 other things that I will tell you in a minute. So regeneration is just an advanced version of sustainability. If you think about what sustainable businesses do, they focus on 2 things. They try to reduce their carbon emissions by adopting clean energy, and they try to reduce and recycle the waste by using the circular economy principles. Regenerative businesses also do that, but they go one step further. They also try to boost the health, swastha, and the vitality, prana, of people, places, and planet altogether. This holistic and synergistic approach is what I call triple regeneration. Let me give you 2 examples from India to show how to practice triple regeneration. Selco is a social business based in Bangalore that has set up off-grid solar power systems for over 1 million low-income households, especially in rural India. But they didn't stop there. If they stopped there, it would be just a sustainability story. They went one step further. They actually developed a whole range of solar-powered equipment that small farmers can use to process their crops post-harvest, which improves their livelihoods. So Selco is a regenerative business that not only gives the fish clean energy to rural communities, but also teaches them how to fish using clean energy to increase their income. Likewise, Pakka is an enterprise based in Ayodhya. They actually offer regenerative packaging solutions for food products. They transform sugarcane waste, sourced locally, into biodegradable packaging. Their factory in Ayodhya is powered 100% by clean energy. The goal is to ensure that nothing goes to waste, especially people's talent, and in particular, women's talent. That's why they appointed women at every level in the organization, which made Pakka a most preferred workplace for women. Why insist on this particular point? Because I said earlier in my presentation that our existing growth model excludes people. And Pakka and Selco are replacing this growth model that we find in the West with a regenerative growth model where companies can actively contribute to human development and increase social and ecological harmony. This will enable all Indians to become Atma-Nirbhar, self-sufficient and empowered. For me, Atma-Nirbhar is the foundational step towards Viksit Bharat. So, to summarize, the climate crisis is calling all of us to operate safely within planetary limits. But we need to boldly stretch the limits of human imagination if we want to develop India. And India, Bharat, is the birthplace of frugal innovation. So let's combine our Jugad ingenuity, our millennia-old Vedic wisdom, and advanced technologies to build a frugal economy that truly benefits people, society, and the planet. I invite you all as technology innovators to embody the 3 dharmic principles of cooperation, distribution, and regeneration that are embodied in the 3 pillars of a frugal economy so that we can achieve both Atmanirbhar Bharat and Viksit Bharat. Thank you very much.
A big round of applause, ladies and gentlemen, to Mr. Navi Rajjo. May I request Ms. Sonia Manchanda, co-founder, Spread Design and Innovation Private Limited, to kindly come on stage and present a token of our gratitude to Mr. Navi. Thank you so much. May I now request Mr. Paul Harwood, co-founder, Useristics, to kindly make his presentation. Please put your hands together as we invite Mr. Paul Harwood.
No, I have no clicker. No clicker. Oh, no, there's no need. No need. Nothing on the screen. Nothing on the screen. Well, it's very nice to be here. And even when I got the email, I was really looking forward to coming to this conference. When I got the email, the subject line had been truncated. So it read, "This is your invitation to join BTS." And there was a small second where I thought, this in a K-pop boy band? But I was very relieved when I actually opened the email to discover it was a tech summit. You weren't going to have to see me dance, and we were actually going to talk about a subject that I knew something about. I don't have a deck. But I looked up at the screen because as a behavioral scientist, I know that if I look at the screen, you look at the screen, and that just amuses me. But there's a real reason why I decided not to do a deck. This is a tech summit. The theme is Unbound. This is a session about techno innovations that are disrupting industries. But the deck has to be in PowerPoint. And that just didn't ring true to me. That in a conference that is about being unbound, and we're talking about tech innovations that are disrupting industries, that we should do a PowerPoint. And I'll get to that again in a moment. The other reason I decided not to do a deck is I'm going to be talking about understanding users. And what's critical about understanding users is listening. That is key if you are to truly understand your users and understand what makes people tick. Now, I understand why PowerPoint is the chosen format that the presentation will be in. And that's because this conference is so heavily supported by government. And that's an awesome thing. So I'm willing to overlook the PowerPoint requirement. But having so much government support is great because that is an integral part for supporting startups. And there are some great startups here in Bangalore. There's also a rich ecosystem. So on Friday, I'll be going to the management school that you have here and looking at the Center for Startups and Entrepreneurs. So there's a lot of great stuff that's associated when a conference such as this and an area such as this has such great government support. But what's really key is the ability to listen to your users. And it doesn't matter what stage of growth your startup is at, you have to understand what users need. So it doesn't matter whether you're dealing with adoption, retention, monetization, maybe even acquisition, or user protection, an often overlooked part of growth. But understanding what makes people tick, what is the user problem, is critical. So I work with lots of companies, and the idea that if you build it, they will come. They won't. You have to give them a reason to come. So technological advancement is socially constructed. It doesn't occur in a vacuum. And this is a panel or a session about techno innovations that are disrupting industries. But the techno innovation itself does not disrupt an industry. It's the way people apply the technology that causes the disruption. Television is often said to have revolutionized the way we are entertained and the way we even connect with each other within the home. It became known as sort of the electronic hearth. It redesigned the living room. But a technology needs to provide an unmet need, and television did that. But the device itself, the television, the box, did not disrupt entertainment. It was the fact that one pioneering future couch potato got up and turned on the actual piece of technology. They were the disruptor. By applying the technology, the disruption occurred. So technology needs to provide value. It needs to provide utility. It needs to provide an unmet need. So you have to figure out what is the real problem a user has. And this brings me to sort of what does it mean when we say tech innovation? How do we measure that? Does it have to be adopted by the world, just one market, a particular segment, a particular industry? What makes something innovative? Many startups fail for funding and for a variety of reasons, but one of the reasons that's up there is a failure to develop a product that actually solves a real problem. So if you're a founder, be open to what your users tell you. It's not what you build, it's who you build it for that matters. So even if you develop this really cool feature, and that is the best thing since sliced bread to you, if the users that you have are not wowed by it, don't push it. If you push the feature that users are not necessarily seeing has the greatest utility, it will impact your startup's success. So once you define that real user problem, then you need to ensure that everything you learn about your users is to engage with a business outcome. Understanding users, though, has three component parts. There's attitudes of the user. There is behavior of the user. And then there is the context in which it exists. And the context is probably the most difficult for founders to recognize. There's the temptation that once you've conducted research in one market, you then understand your users. Each market is unique, and you need to recognize that each market is unique and do research in each market early and often. Now, I help lots of tech companies, but I didn't begin as a person working in tech. I began as an academic. I built models to help predict whether someone was going to be radicalized to terrorism. But then one day I got a call in my university office and was asked to come out and speak to the founder of Facebook. And supposedly Facebook had been one of the 4 people in an audience where I had been presenting my academic research. I don't buy that myself. But I went out there, and I then moved from academia into the dark side and took on the commercial realm. And went from trying to predict people radicalizing to terrorism to predicting what is going to retain someone and have someone adopt this new product called Facebook. Now, when we think of understanding users, it is critical that we always work for that user problem and that business outcome. So I'm going to talk about some examples that I've worked on. They may not have disrupted an entire industry, but they've definitely changed the way we communicate, the way we pay for products, and the way we use our phones to either work or play. The first example I want to focus on speaks to adoption and also acquisition. And I want to talk about a startup called ZipDial. ZipDial is a startup that grew out of Bangalore. And after I was working at Facebook, I moved to head up international research for Twitter. And Twitter needed to get access to the Indian market. And ZipDial provided a great opportunity, and its founder, Val Wagner, really understood the user. She understood the business problem. And we were able to understand that by acquiring ZipDial, we would get access to a different segment of Indian society that we as a company were struggling to take advantage of. So the acquisition of ZipDial is a nice illustration of, by understanding the users, one, the founder was able to be acquired, but by conducting the research for Twitter, we were able to acquire something that was incredibly useful for solving our business problem. How do we gain market share within India? Understanding users isn't necessarily just about how they apply a product. It's also about the perception that they have on new technologies. We're going to hear a lot about AI at this conference. But if you speak to users, or you speak to members of the public about what is AI, what is artificial intelligence, what is generative AI, they will give you 3 different answers. Okay? So if you describe it as AI, they'll say one thing. If you describe it as artificial intelligence, they'll say something else. So understanding the perception and what these terms mean for people and what the application of these terms is going to allow them and companies to achieve is important. So I was recently working for a company that does searches online that is pretty big with the ABCs, so to speak, on how to actually measure AI and the personalization of the customer experience, and doing it in multiple markets, and how people perceive AI in Japan is totally different than how they perceive it in Brazil, how they perceive it in France. So as a founder, you need to take the time to understand users by market, by segment. They're going to have different user needs. Waymo is another great example, a self-driving automated vehicle. People have reservations about getting in a car when there's no driver. What are those reservations? We need to overcome those reservations if we want to actually put bodies in self-driving cars and allow them to have a good customer experience when they travel with us. So if you're a founder, there's a temptation when you do interact with a user to focus on your product. Don't do that. You want to listen to them. You want to ask them questions about their everyday. So to give you an example, Twitter had to compete for time when people would say they have nothing to do. I use Twitter, I use Facebook when I've got nothing to do. Obviously, people are doing something when they say they have nothing to do. But it's at certain points of the day. And one of the important points of the day is the commute. So I had many interviews where I was just talking to people in lots of different markets about how they commute. Do you use your phone? Do you use public transportation? And the goal was to understand how the user commutes so that we could build a product that would allow for engagement and ensure daily active users during that commute. And one of the solutions we did was we designed buttons that would be enlarged at certain points of the time to allow it easier for people to actually posts a tweet while they were on their commute. Netflix. Netflix is obviously a streaming service, but it began streaming its content without advertising. They now obviously have added ads into their experience as a particular payment plan. But understanding how people actually use streaming, how they interact with an ad when it's going to be within their streaming service, how do we go back and try and slot ads in where there was no ad break? Understanding these very fundamental things about how we live our lives is critical if you're going to build a product that is going to reach users and is going to be able to solve an actual problem that users have. If we think of retention, I like to sort of always focus on the like button. So I was very fortunate to work on the button and do research about, how should the like actually be designed. It has a slight curvature in the thumb. That's purposeful. If it didn't have it, it would be very rude in some parts of the world. But understanding all of these customs and understanding users by market is critical. Now, is that a technovation that has disrupted an industry? It's definitely changed the way we interact with our friends. And it was small, but I remember when we were doing the tests and we were sort of dog fooding the product, only people at the Facebook headquarters had it. There was these couple that had been dating, and the woman posted on her newsfeed that she was now single, and the guy liked it. There was a lot of four-letter words as she read the fact that he'd liked it, obviously in the office, but it did illustrate that we really did have a product that was going to allow people to express emotion, show empathy, and increase our daily active users. Another great example of understanding your users is Stripe. Stripe is a payment processor. It has revolutionized the way we can accept payments as a mom and pop store, all the way through to huge companies, including companies that are in the exhibit hall today. But that company, and I've had the pleasure of working with them, recognizes that for their product, there is not just one type of user. There is the CEO who wants to look at the dashboard. There is the person who has to process the refunds. There are lots of different users in there that you need to understand what their utility is, what their user problem is. And then you need to build a dashboard and a customer experience that will enable all of them to have a successful experience. If we think also of user protection, an often overlooked part of growth, I like to always focus on password length, because it's a nice sort of illustration of how something so simple can really increase your growth and adoption within a market. So I was doing research for a company that was struggling to get adopted in Germany. And I did interviews there, and we discovered that Germans just perceived this company as this crazy American company that only expected them to create a password that had 8 characters, 1 capital letter, and that was it. You were good to go. Simply by increasing the password length to 15 characters and allowing individuals to add symbols, something as simple as that, increased adoption by some 20% within 2 weeks. So the importance of understanding the user problem that may be the barrier to adoption, that may be the barrier to allowing for retention of users, is critical. Now, obviously, this conference is about being unbound. And as we think of unbound, we naturally think forward. But we should also look at the technologies that we already have that may have great utility by being applied today within an industry or within a context that just has not used them. So for 10 years, I was on the US FDA risk advisory panel, advising the FDA on how to communicate risk of, say, drug recalls, nutritional facts for food, and all the appliances that the FDA still currently regulates. And one topic was, how do we get doctors to actually learn about drug recalls? The system that the FDA had in place was to send a physical letter. That's a technology. To send a physical letter to let the doctor know that the drug was being recalled. It wasn't working. So the government department, in its infinite wisdom, decided it wanted to spend millions of dollars building this super-duper app. It was going to do everything. It was going to do drug recall. It was going to do notifications about incoming illness in your particular area. It was going to be able to brush your teeth. It was going to do everything. And I was asked, what do you think as the tech representative on this panel? And I was like, well, they don't read the letter. How are they going to know that the app exists? And then I remember suggesting, and this is 2017, maybe we should use email. You would have thought I had just sort of broken the atom, but email, we could use email, an old technology, but it totally disrupted how doctors then received drug recalls. Nothing new. And one of my most cringeworthy moments, because this was covered on C-SPAN, was actually reading into the record that I agree, email may be good because it's widely used, and that the cringeworthy suggesting, it was widely used in 2017. Another example, and it just shows the importance about the application of the technology, is the US Border Patrol. They have loads of gizmos and gadgets that allow them to be aware of happenings on both borders. And I was testing a new piece of technology that is being used. And they drove me out to the border. And one of the Border Patrol agents, car with huge tires so it doesn't sink in the sand. I asked him, what's the most important technology that you have? And he gets out the truck. We go to the tailgate at the back of his truck, and he pulls out this huge tire attached to a rope. And he was like, this is the best technology I have. Now, obviously, when you're standing in 120 degrees heat and you're testing this new piece of technology, this can be soul-crushing. But he explained to me that this very simple technology of dragging a tire that rakes the sand and makes it flat, so you can then see the footprints that may have crossed into the United States. That was the most successful, in his mind, technology of solving a particular user problem. And lastly, OpenAI. OpenAI is obviously changing through our application, and the way we apply it is changing the way we educate, changing the way we work. But old technologies are also being applied too. So interestingly, the sale of pens, pencils, those little exam books that you write in, they've increased in sales on college campuses in the United States in the last several semesters. Because professors are cottoning on that maybe students are using this to help them complete an assignment. So they're saying, no, no, no. You can use this old technology. We'll use this old technology to test you in your exam. So if you're a non-cursive writing Gen Zer out there, good luck. Because it seems as though to combat this new technology that's disrupting the way we are educated, we're going to begin to apply an older technology to combat it. So we're talking, obviously, on this panel, this session, about techno-innovations that are disrupting the way industries function. But I want each of us to recognize that we are all doing our part. It's through our application that the disruption occurs, not through the technology itself. Thank you very much.
A big round of applause, ladies and gentlemen, to Mr. Paul Harwood, co-founder, Useristics. May I now request Mr. Bhaskar Verma, Regional Director, NASSCOM, to kindly come on stage and present a token of our appreciation to Mr. Paul. Welcome, Mr. Guruprasad. Yes.
Good afternoon. My name is Guru Prasad. I see some familiar faces here who know me well. So thank you very much. I'm happy to be back here at the Bangalore Tech Summit. Coming from a technology innovation conglomerate called Bosch, I would naturally speak about technology. And based on the theme of the event, I really chose compute and the marriage of compute with cognition. Yeah? That's really truly unbound in that sense, and the future of our world will be largely dictated with the capabilities of what we call cognitive computing, which will power the next wave of transformation for future-ready industries. What are the industries? I will pick up a couple of industries which I'm responsible for. I care for all the topics at Bosch beyond the mobility world. So this is industrial, energy, building technology, healthcare, and yeah, I'm also one of the global directors at Bosch in Germany. With that short note, let me start. So, what does cognitive computing do? It just bridges the human thought with what we call machine intelligence. Yeah? The human thought is unbound in a different order of magnitude, but has the challenge, it cannot be connected because we are all highly individual and we keep our thoughts and our actions to ourselves. So cognitive computing, it just tries to replicate the human process and puts that into a computerized model that it can be taken beyond and implemented for a larger benefit. Why do we need to do this? Maybe I need to come a little bit backward here. Basically, the world no longer is structured data. The initial world of compute started with very much structured data. We are all used to the databases and the various tools which we used on the databases, we are moving into the unstructured world. When you move into the unstructured world, you require a contextual understanding for you to interpret that data. Typically, we as human beings have that built in, but we now need the machines to look into that. By the sheer amount of data that is getting generated, we also require the systems to be adaptive, that they are able to learn by themselves, just again like the way we do, and not wait for a series of instructions to be given to them what to do next. You will see one wonderful video I have somewhere in the middle of the presentation of reasoning and problem solving, like one of the previous speakers spoke about. With the advent of, let's say, generative AI, there is an element of reasoning and problem solving which the machines now come built into. You'll be surprised at what you will see there when we look at that video. Human-like interaction, cobots, robots, and all of those technology marvels already have the capability to mimic or work together with humans without causing injury to the human being for a productive purpose. Decision support and augmentation, that's the final outcome. We do all this pain in the world of compute because we need a machine to make a decision just the way I do, and possibly that's the reason I invest so much into this world. With this as a context, I'll move forward. All these things are possible due to some of the technologies which are emerging, technologies which have matured, and technologies which are enabling this transition. Let's look at onto your left, which is edge computing. The sheer amount of data which we are generating today would have no meaning if I do not have an ability to filter out, do the basic computation on the edge, and then go to the latency-driven networking and storage systems. Internet of Things, moment I have the edge computing ability, I have the ability to connect two things which can compute independently and also possibly talk to each other, and then we come to the world of Internet of Things. AI and ML, when I have the ability with certain microcontrollers and the processing element within each one of the sensor elements, I can program them to behave in a particular way, which is nothing but the world what we call artificial intelligence and machine learning. Because we are all human, and as you are seeing my actions, we all want things to be also rendered in front of us. Augmented reality and virtual reality technologies bring in that next element of interactability with the human being, which is also a technology which is rapidly maturing. Because I do all these things over a particular communication protocol, I really require it to be safe and secure, and the cybersecurity protocols and things like that step in. Rapid advances are being made here, which also enables this whole transition. Last but not the least, we're going to shake up the world of the binary compute and move into the physics of quantum computing. At Bosch, we are already the pioneers to have one of the first sensors which is based on quantum technology. And this, imagine plowing it back into the whole cycle, will revolutionize how computation is done from the current way of looking at it into the future. What are the challenges typically? All these technologies are required because they address a particular challenge. One of the typical challenge faced is the data overload. So all of them now optimize the transmission and storage of data to where it is required and discard the rest and move forward. Decision complexity. It was once normal that you pump everything into the cloud and the latency is so high that there is no real-time decision making which is possible on the edge. We now are able to optimize the decision making between an edge and a distributed model. Last one, the accuracy of this compute, the accuracy of this prediction. With the advances in technology which we just now listed, significantly and dramatic improvements are possible in the way we are able to get the prediction accuracy. What are the business enablers? These are the technology enablers. As a technologist, if technology does not solve a business problem, it has no meaning. So we come to the business enablers. The entire world is moving away into software-driven control systems. With that, I am able to remove the mechanical inertia and the enormous things which are required to change an ecosystem which is already set up. Solutions today which we are generating are digital native first. They are not digital backpacks added onto a system which did not deal with the digital world. Today's solutions are digital native. When they are digital native, they have the ability to both consume and to spit out information which is contextually relevant. Adaptation to market changes, I think the previous two speakers also spoke about it. Ultimately, why are we doing all these things? The market is rapidly changing and I need to keep pace with that. Finally, faster time to market, and then I need the dynamicity in my business solution by which I can beat my competition. Some of the industries, as I mentioned, healthcare, we're talking of personalized healthcare, remote patient monitoring, telemedicine, AI-powered diagnostics, manufacturing, smart factories, yeah, the IoT integrations, robotics and automation. I'll go into the details, I'll not read through it. Some of the caselets which I have will be on healthcare, manufacturing, consumer, and automotive as we go forward. I'll skip this because of the lack of time. Smart manufacturing. By far a significant contributor to anybody's economy worldwide. Like the first speaker, my good friend, spoke about, it is the combination of that efficiency and sustainability which is the key in smart manufacturing. And what we are talking is, a large amount of production today is already autonomous. There are many factories in the world where hardly a human being steps in a complete day. It is that autonomous. A factory always deals with an input and pushes something to the output. You need connected supply chains if you want to run something autonomous. So we're talking of connected supply chains. Workforce empowerment. This is basically whether the man or the machine, is it empowered to make the call to make that process faster. Of course, sustainability is a big topic because these are energy guzzling industries and we need sustainability. At this point, I'll quickly jump to a short video. Every caselet, I have a short video. Due acknowledgement to whoever created it. A couple of them are from Bosch and a couple of them are outside Bosch. But that's just to bring about the perspective of what is that we're talking of when we talk of, let's say, smart manufacturing.
Envision how much more you could achieve with open, flexible, and scalable automation technology. The broadest portfolio, engineered and harmonized to move your manufacturing forward. This is complete factory automation, the way it should be. With innovative, performance-driven technologies and generations of engineering expertise, Bosch Rexroth does more to move your factory forward. From start to finish, our complete factory automation solutions get you to market faster. Open controls that simplify operations. Adaptable conveyors that transform production systems. Smarter, simpler mechatronic systems to boost your productivity. Behind it all, you'll find applications expertise grounded in thousands of automation success stories. With full lifecycle support you can count on. Let us partner with you to solve your manufacturing challenges. It's time to streamline how automation works. It's time for automation to work for you. Harmonized, customized, complete. That's factory automation, the way it should be. From Bosch Rexroth.
A snapshot. If any one of you are in the southern German town of Ulm near Stuttgart, we have an experience center of a factory automation where you can order something by your voice. An entire set of machinery and control system will manufacture that product in front of you, label the product with your name, package it the way you want, and before you leave the experience center, deliver it in a gift wrap. That's the factory automation we are talking about. Without human intervention, they are all self-healing systems. They even auto-correct an error which is done, and they're able to inspect themselves in terms of the output they generate. Yeah, I hope this gave you a little bit insight into what is that automation we are referring to. I'll move forward into medicine. Yeah, this is again a complex topic. Wherever there's profound amount of data is where I require the power of compute. Each one of us are unique. Our treatment plans today are normally uniform. We don't respond to the treatments accordingly. Personalized treatment plans can only come into picture when I am able to process your data for you, for the treatment you require, which is most optimized for you. Predictive health monitoring. In predictive health monitoring, the whole challenge is an ocean of information talks of healthiness. There are certain small trends which creep into that, which is the genesis of the unhealthiness, and you need to track it to closure, or you need to address it. Diagnostic accuracy. With the sheer amount of possibilities which are being discovered, we need to enhance the diagnostic accuracy to the point that it is specific and sensitive. Patient engagement with the ever-hungry production of human beings on this earth, I think there is no way the clinical fraternity can keep up with bringing in that many clinical professionals into the world. We need digital ones who are able to a little bit mediate this conversation. So, improve patient outcomes, delivery, care, and finally, happy or healthy patients is the aim here. I'll again take you through a small topic. This is about the amazing world of genes and the genetic world, and not the typical ones of a medical device or a pharmaceutical one. I want you to look at this video, please.
To start, different people may have different genetic mutations, and sometimes even more than one. Researchers have discovered that certain treatments work better for people with specific mutations, but may not work for people with different ones. Same thing with biomarker. A patient's unique biomarkers give doctors insight into how a patient might respond to certain treatment approaches. The more a doctor knows about your biomarkers and the exact number and kind of genetic mutations you have, the better they can prevent, diagnose, and treat your disease. Personalized medicine is leading to more effective treatments that cause fewer side effects and have a better chance to cure or manage a disease. Now sure, sometimes getting something off the rack works out just fine. But why go off the rack when you have the option to have something tailor-made?
I move forward from the world of medicine. I think we covered industry, we have covered medicine. Two things which profoundly affect human beings. Of course, we all need to live somewhere. We live in a building, and then there are equipments all around us which are becoming increasingly smarter and connected. We're talking of this connected consumer ecosystem. Most of our kitchens are already quite automated. There are equipments you can talk to, they respond back. There are equipments which can be programmed to order something via Amazon, they do it by themselves. There are equipments which can monitor how dirty your clothes are when it goes into a washing machine. Endless. Yeah? So this is the world of consumer ecosystem. Basically, in this world, these are discrete equipments which need to be integrated into an ecosystem. Compute, communication, and then the cognition. The video will be very wonderful, but I'll save the video for a few minutes later. It's very personalized because each one of our kitchens or the equipments we use is very specific to my way of life or our way of life, and they need to be personalized. If you don't have the ability to digitally alter them, they all get manufactured at one location and they cannot be changed subsequently. How many of you have heard of the V-commerce, the voice commerce? That will be the next big thing, because there is a refrigerator from Bosch with integrated cameras inside the refrigerator, which via a hub can be connected to the internet in your house. It has a liaison with a passport control with the Amazon Web Service, and it can order tomatoes whenever you say, I always request 6 tomatoes in the tray. So it's today already a reality. If any one of you are interested, you are welcome to come to our Bosch Center. That refrigerator is constantly tested by our engineers, some of whom are sitting here. I can see a smile on their face. They are so proud of their work. Yeah? It has about 6 cameras. It can also tell when you left the day what was inside the refrigerator. When you came back in the evening, how many calories were consumed by somebody inside the house. So we are building algorithms for each one of them. Yeah? Yeah. Autonomous climate control. We also have the home comfort, the air conditioning, the heating systems. They also need to be in a loop. And then the whole thing about, can it be environment sensitive and can it be more self-correcting to the environment outside and changing the environment inside. I'm sure you will all be wondering, this guy is talking of technology, where is Gen AI? I want you to pay close attention to this one video, which integrates home, robotics, cognition, Gen AI, and a complete assisted living. I'll now play the video. I do hope that at least at the end of this video, you will clap.
Hey, Figure 1, what do you see right now?
I see a red apple on a plate in the center of the table, a drying rack with cups and a plate, and you standing nearby with your hand on the table.
Great, can I have something to eat?
Sure thing.
Can I have something to eat? He did not say, give me the apple.
Great. Can you explain why you did what you just did while you pick up this trash?
On it. So I gave you the apple because it's the only edible item I could provide you with from the table.
Is able to reason out the answer.
Great. So, based on the scene right now, where do you think the dishes in front of you go next?
The dishes on the table, like that plate and cup, are likely to go into the drying rack next.
Great. Can you put them there?
Of course.
All right, so how do you think you did?
I think I did pretty well. The apple found its new owner, the trash is gone, and the tableware is right where it belongs.
It is able to reflect.
I agree. Thanks, Figure 1.
You're welcome. If there's anything else you need help with, just let me know.
How does this sound? It was in real time communicating with a live human being using a robotic interface that is connected to OpenAI framework. It is able to reason, it is able to reflect, it is able to diagnose what it has to do next without explicit commands. I am hungry. There is only one thing on the table, which is an apple which you can eat, and hence I give you. It did not give the plate. Nobody programmed it. I hope you are able to get the transition now. There is no program written for the plate or the apple. It is a generative AI bringing in the cognition for the machine intelligence at the edge. I'll move forward. I'm getting a sign that it's becoming a little bit interesting, but they have time constraint. Last but not the least, mobility, one of the important things, because all of us are here because of the mobility enablement. Otherwise, most of us would not have reached here. We are talking of vehicle-to-vehicle communication, autonomous vehicles. I'm sure you would have all experienced it. I don't really need to call it out. And ultimately, because mobility forms such a fundamental human need, the connectivity and the ensuing compute required to make that connectivity happen, and the cognition to make that connectivity intelligence is all that we are calling as autonomous ecosystem for mobility. I'll quickly run through this. Yeah.
Goods around by truck has been an essential part of national and international logistics systems for decades, and a key factor keeping our economies moving. But the arrival of digital technology is set to revolutionize that in ways that were unthinkable only a few years ago. Before too long, trucking and logistics will be made up of an ecosystem of autonomous vehicles directed by a digitized supply chain, combining driverless trucks with no cabs and delivery hubs staffed by robots. The image of the trucker taking a break at a truck stop with his truck parked in the lot may become a thing of the past. Driving all of this change will be a range of new technologies and cloud-based digital solutions.
I'm pausing it because I'm really getting the warning that it is about to end. But I do hope that I could bring in the breadth of the possibilities. Being a core technology company and being an engineer myself, this is what we stand for. And what we are talking of is technologies which are driving these transformations. Right? Please underline this word. The future will be intelligence embedded, and like that Apple use case, a significant amount of routine programming will no longer be required. Innovation and sustainability, because it does not waste trial and error, and the way it does is already super efficient. It will be, let's say, world friendly. And then I think the future is just a limitless possibility. And I'm sure every year we will have this tech summit where we share with each other some of these interesting things. I do hope that you found this short presentation from me interesting. You have any questions, you can always write to me. I will try my best, at least over the weekend, to respond back to you. And thank you very much for your time.
A big round of applause once again, ladies and gentlemen, to Mr. Guru Prasad, VP, Global Director, Bosch Global Software Technology. May I now request Ms. Mamata Gowda, IAS, Government of Karnataka, to kindly come on stage and present a token of our gratitude to Mr. Guru Prasad. That's Ms. Mamata Gowda, IAS, Government of Karnataka, doing the honors. Thank you so much. Our next speaker this noon is Mr. Harish Bhatt, Brand Custodian, Tata Sons Limited. Put your hands together, ladies and gentlemen, as I welcome Mr. Harish Bhatt.
A very, very good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It gives me great pleasure to stand here today, and it's a privilege to speak on a session which is going to be somewhat different from the sessions you have heard so far, a tribute to Mr. Ratan Tata. At the outset, I'd like to congratulate the Government of Karnataka, the Department of IT/BT, on the 27th edition of the Bengaluru Tech Summit, which has come out so splendidly. My heartiest congratulations to the government and to all the organizers. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a little over a month since Mr. Ratan Tata passed away. I'm going to request, he was chairman of the Tata Group, and he was a man who inspired hundreds of millions of Indians all across the country. Even before I begin my address, may I request all of us to perhaps stand up for a moment to pay respects to the memory of Mr. Ratan Tata. Thank you very much. You know, we miss his presence greatly today, but we are still very inspired by his principles and the memories of his life. You know, I remember being in Bombay to pay my last respects to him. His body lay in state at the National Center for Performing Arts, and there was an unending line of people from all across Mumbai who had come all across waiting to pay their tributes to him. The city of Mumbai had posters in tribute to Mr. Ratan Tata, and there was such universal love and affection for Mr. Tata as India bid goodbye to an icon who has inspired an entire nation. Just earlier this month, our Honorable Prime Minister wrote an article about Ratan Tata, and he said there that he remains alive in the lives of everyone that he touched and the dreams that he nurtured. Generations will be grateful to him for making India a better place, a kinder place, and a more hopeful place. Last month, Mr. N. Chandrasekaran, the chairman of Tata Sons, wrote a personal tribute to Ratan Tata on LinkedIn, and he said anybody who met Mr. Tata came away with a story about his humanity, his warmth, and his dreams for India. There was really no one like him. Ladies and gentlemen, what was it about Ratan Tata that made him the man he was? Why did millions of people respect, adore, and love him? What lessons can we learn from him? I'd like to narrate a few stories from Mr. Ratan Tata's life and then talk about a couple of lessons that we can learn from this icon. He was a great lover of technology. He was a great lover of technology, and I'm sure he would have been delighted to be present at a session such as this. He brought the best of technology to the Tata Group. But I want to take you way back in time, about 20 years back, to the late 1990s, when Ratan Tata stood up at the Automobile Manufacturers Association of India and said, can India develop its own car? We used to have cars on the roads of India. We had the Maruti Suzuki 800, which was designed in Japan and assembled in India. We had the Hyundai, which was designed in Korea and assembled in Sriperumbudur in Tamil Nadu. But Mr. Tata said, can we have a car which is completely Indian? The design, the technology, the parts that go into the car, can it be completely Indian and full of Indian pride? Why cannot a country that has put a satellite into space have its own car? I must remind you that way back in the 1990s, people were skeptical. They said, can India make its own car? Can that kind of technology be mastered in this country? And other automobile manufacturers were not so willing to join that experiment. So Mr. Tata decided to do it within Tata Motors, or Telco as it was then called. It was a gigantic journey. His vision was to make a car which was as large as the Ambassador, as fuel efficient as the Maruti 800, and as stylish as the Zen. I don't know how many of you remember the Zen, which was on the roads at that time. The Tata Indica, as it was called, was designed by the Engineering Research Center of Telco at Pune, in collaboration with IDEO of Turin. When it came onto the roads of India, ladies and gentlemen, there was not a car designed like the Tata Indica, with the space that it had inside, the fuel efficiency that it had inside. But then you needed a plant to manufacture the Tata Indica. And a plant to manufacture automobiles is somewhat expensive, in the region of $2 billion. And Telco did not have that kind of money at that time. So we spoke about frugality earlier today, as speakers spoke about frugality. Mr. Tata and his team went the world over, found a disused Nissan plant in Australia, which was being used only for 15 minutes each day, disassembled that plant in Australia, brought it to Pune, and assembled it brick by brick in Pune. His engineers and he had to develop ancillary units to create more than 3,000 discrete parts that go into a new car. And they did that in time. Initially, there were a few quality problems with the Tata Indica, but they were resolved and the Tata Indica V2 was launched sometime in the early 2000s. By 2001-2002, the Tata Indica had gone on to become the fastest selling car on the face of India, and it was recognized as the best car in its category. So today you see the Tata Nexons, the Harriers, the Punches on the roads, but the Tata Indica was the original Indian car. And many people have asked Mr. Tata, what gave you the courage? What gave you the courage to say that you could infuse the new technology to make the Tata Indica in India? He created the Tata Indica, ladies and gentlemen, because he thought that was right for this country. He thought that India's own car would be our nation's pride, and it would also develop an entire automobile ecosystem in the western part of India. He created the car because of his courage of conviction, because of his aspiration to do more. And he's quoted as having said, it's important, particularly for the younger people in India, to believe in what we are doing and that we can do much, much more. He said, history may say that we failed or history may say that we succeeded, but we thought of it and we made it. We made India's first own car. That, ladies and gentlemen, was the dream that Mr. Ratan Tata had, creating India's own car, and he made it happen way back in the early 2000s. I'm not going to speak about the Nano today, which was yet another dream he had and an innovation par excellence. But I'm going to quickly move to another facet of Mr. Ratan Tata, which is equally interesting. And I'm going to move once again to the year 2004, which was the IPO of a company that all of you know today, Tata Consultancy Services. TCS was a small company at that time, and this was perhaps the largest IPO of its kind in 2004. It was a huge IPO, and it was hugely oversubscribed. In fact, it set a record by being hugely oversubscribed in the retail portion alone. But due to the loss at that time, more than 40% of the IPO could not be allocated to retail investors. And Mr. Ratan Tata was not happy with that. That IPO was priced in a band of about 700 to 900 rupees. And because it was so heavily oversubscribed, the finance people started telling Mr. Ratan Tata that we should now price it at the highest end of the band at 900. But Mr. Tata turned to them and he said, that's not right. For all our investors, particularly for our retail investors, we have to leave something on the table. Only then will we be fair to all our stakeholders. And eventually, that IPO was not priced at the top of the range. It was priced at 850 rupees. And it went on to become a huge, huge success. People who have invested in it gained hugely over the years and the decades ahead. In his mind, always it was being about fair to all stakeholders. And I believe that's a lesson for all our entrepreneurs of today, being fair to all our stakeholders rather than to the promoters alone. It was not only fairness. In Mr. Tata's mind, doing something for the community and the nation was critically important. In 2012, he spearheaded the Tata Medical Center and Cancer Research Institute in Kolkata. In 2022, just 2 years ago, under his leadership, the Tata Trusts invested in 7 cancer care hospitals which were inaugurated in the state of Assam. Under his leadership as the chairman of the Tata Trusts, a network of 20 hospitals across 7 states of India are in the process of coming up in collaboration with state governments. And the focus in all of them has been on the common man, on the quality of treatment, on the affordability of treatment, on creating awareness about cancer. Apart from the fact that these hospitals use the best technology for cancer cure today. Mr. Ratan Tata famously said that he would dedicate the remaining years of his life to healthcare, which he did. So for him, it was not just technology, not just pioneering a new car, not just the right pricing of an IPO, it was also about helping the needy and giving back to society. But those are not the only facets of Mr. Ratan Tata which come to my mind, ladies and gentlemen. I want to take a little bit of time to focus on an episode which was hugely distressing for all of us. And I want to take a little bit of time to focus on the terrible terrorist attack in Mumbai, including at the Taj Mahal Hotel on the 26th of November 2008. I would say this has been one of the most tragic episodes in our recent history. And people who have worked closely with Mr. Ratan Tata at that time say that he immediately went and stood outside the Taj for nearly 3 days. He was helpless but determined to be at hand to help. Immediately after the terrorists were vanquished, he wanted to go into the hotel. Virtually immediately, he announced the formation of a Taj Public Welfare Trust to provide relief to the victims of the terror attack. Not just to the victims in the Taj, but to the general public, the police, the firemen, the security forces, the employees of the Taj and other establishments which were subjected to the terror attack. Senior people of the Taj at that time have told me how Mr. Tata was determined to help every victim and his or her family. When people told him, "You're still not aware of how much this attack has actually impacted the city," Mr. Tata told them, "This city of Mumbai has given us so much. This is the time for us to give back to the city and to its people." He met every family of the Taj which had lost a loved one. He spent time with them, sharing their sorrow, but also reassuring them that their futures would be taken care of. And then, ladies and gentlemen, he announced from the steps of the Taj that the Taj would be up and running within a month. He said, "We cannot be vanquished, we will be up and running within a month." And this promise was fulfilled. He led the execution. With the finest technology from around the world, this promise was fulfilled when the tower wing of the Taj reopened for business by 21st December 2008, less than a month after the terror attack. Mr. Tata stood on the porch of the Taj and he spoke about how an unprecedented spirit had been awakened, exemplified by how the staff of that hotel had sought to protect guests and protect each other. And then he said, "By opening the Taj Tower block today, we send a strong message that within a month we are up and running. We send a strong message that we can be hurt, but we cannot be knocked down. This Taj here will stand for another 100 years and more, and it will stand as a tribute to the tenacity of our people." That was the tenacity and that was the pride in India that Mr. Ratan Tata displayed. His compassion and care for people, as well as his courage and defiance, are very well known. But finally, and most importantly, was his interactions with people. He believed in the dignity of every person that he interacted with. And a colleague of mine narrated a small instance earlier this year of going to meet Mr. Tata at his home. And he spoke about how Mr. Tata spent time with him, but just as he was leaving, Mr. Tata said, "I will walk you to the door." He asked him whether he had a car to drop him back. And then he stood at the door until he got into his car and drove away. There are many examples of Mr. Tata visiting his retired employees just to say hello to them and see how they were doing. One of his foremost principles was never to respect never to in any way impinge on the dignity of another person. So many people have spoken about how gracious he was in everything that he said and he did. Through these few stories, ladies and gentlemen, I have shared a very, very few lessons from Mr. Ratan Tata's life, but lessons that I think can inspire all of us. The aspiration to make an Indian car, the awareness that you have to be fair to all shareholders, the courage to say the Taj will be back and running within a month of the terror attack, the compassion to spend time with people and ensure that a fund was launched to take care of people, giving back to the country and the society through the Tata Cancer Hospitals and through a number of other social initiatives, dignity and respect for the individual. These are some of the beliefs that Mr. Ratan Tata had, which makes so many of us admire him today. Mr. Ratan Tata was also a strong supporter of the Indian startup community. He invested personally in many startups and provided them with his guidance as well. His inspiration and his guidance were critical to us in the Tata Group. I myself have been part of many startups in the Tata Group over the years, such as Tanishq, Tata Tea, Tata Starbucks, and then as brand custodian of Tata Sons until I retired at the end of last year. But all I want to say is that Mr. Ratan Tata's words on how we visualize the Tata Group stay in our mind forever. Way back in 2003, he said he would like the Tata Group to be the predominant business house in India, which amidst fast eroding values will continue to stand out as being a well-integrated, growth-oriented group with market leadership, operating at a high level of integrity, a great value system, and uncompromising in its goal to achieve results without partaking in corruption, in bribery, or political influence. Those are his words. Those are the words which he believed, he cherished, the ethical values that he safeguarded and nurtured so successfully as a custodian of the values of the House of Tata. With those few words, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to say once again, I'm told, tomorrow is the 25th anniversary of the TCS Rural IT Quiz. And my colleague from TCS was telling me how earlier this year, they had very much wanted to invite Mr. Ratan Tata as a chief guest to the 25th milestone edition of the quiz and also to the Bangalore Tech Summit. While unfortunately that is not possible today, I am sure his spirit lives well within us, and I am sure his spirit and memory will inspire all of us, all the startups present here at the Bangalore Tech Summit, as we take forward the vision of a very, very vibrant India. Thank you very much for giving me a patient hearing.
That was a very, very moving tribute, Mr. Harish Bhatt. A big round of applause to Mr. Bhatt for giving us yet another perspective of Ratan Tata, the greatest industrialist, a visionary, and above all, a human being who had imbibed the most fundamental human values and displayed them as well. A big round of applause to Sir as well as. May I now request Mr. Sunil Deshpande, Regional Head TCS and Conference Committee Member, to kindly come on stage and present a token of our gratitude to Mr. Bhatt. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Harish Bhatt, Mr. Sunil Deshpande doing the honors to Mr. Harish Bhatt. Thank you. May I now invite Mr. Murali Subramaniam, Group Head of DNA Operations, London Stock Exchange. Please put your hands together, ladies and gentlemen, as I invite Mr. Murali Subramaniam.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me? Good afternoon. My topic was supposed to be a keynote on technology and innovation, and I'll try to stick to it. I have two keynotes instead of one, so kindly bear with me. And I'm going to try to be illustrative to deliver those two keynotes. There was an apple that was shown a few minutes back, and a very learned man once saw an apple fall. And the legend has it that it was then that he framed the laws of motion and explained gravity. I had a distinct privilege of attending 30 years ago a talk which was titled, "The Great Intellectual Achievement Principia Is." And Principia was written by Newton. And in that text or treatise, you would see the birth of calculus. Calculus was absolutely needed and necessary to write the laws of motion. It was not the apple that gave us the laws of motion. It was the calculus that was invented by Newton and parallel alongside Leibniz that gave us the laws of motion as we understand them today. Another example that I would like to share with you is what is called the geometry of curved spaces. General theory of relativity came around because the geometry of curved spaces was very well understood by Einstein. The message that I have for you, the first keynote that I have for you is the following, that innovations are preceded by a breakthrough technology or a subject or a discipline that is absolutely needed to drive the innovation. The key message or the note that I have for you today is the following, that if we want to advance human intellect or innovate, we need to create disciplines, or we need to be conscious that we need to work hard to understand and create new ways of doing things before we start using them to start on innovation. That was my first keynote. I'll get to my next one shortly. If I ask all of us what an angle is, some of us would struggle in explaining what an angle is. Humor me, allow me to explain what an angle is. In a two-dimensional space, if you draw two intersecting lines, and at the point of the intersecting lines, if you choose that as your center and draw a circle, the ratio of the arc that is subtended between the two lines divided by the radius is a number. That number will be the same irrespective of how big or how small you draw the arc or the circle. I work for the London Stock Exchange Group. We are headquartered in Paternoster Square at St. Paul's. And if you walk from St. Paul's towards the Indian High Commission, on the way you would encounter the King's College London. And in the windows of the King's College London, somebody has put together a bunch of alumni of King's College London, and you will find some posters there. One such poster was very intriguing, and it was of a bearded gentleman. His name is JCM, James Clerk Maxwell. Maxwell introduced or developed a new discipline called vector calculus, and that subject allowed us to understand how do you define an angle in a non-Euclidean space. Why is that important for us in the context of what I'm trying to tell you? I'll come to that in a minute, but before that, I want to share with you another interesting subject or anecdote or information that you'll find interesting. There was this lady whose name you might have heard. Her name is Jane Goodall. And Jane Goodall, I think it was the forests of Tanzania, where she first saw or videographed a chimpanzee making a tool. And the tool apparently looked something like this. There's a twig with some leaves on it, and the chimpanzee would remove the leaves from the twig and make it a tool where once the tool is made, the chimpanzee will dip the tool into an ant hole and wait patiently. And after it waits for some time, the ants will cling to the tool, and then the chimpanzee will have a sumptuous, delicious meal out of the tool that it made. The problem that we have today in innovation and in use of technology that I often encounter is this: that there was another chimpanzee which was watching this chimpanzee make this beautiful tool to catch ants. But this other chimpanzee decided to copy this tool and made this tool. But with this tool, it put it into water and waited for a fish to cling to the tool. That's something that I want all of us to reflect on. Tools are easy to make, but unless you understand the basic principles of tools, we will be using tools that are being created, technology that are being created in areas that are not innovatable. We may be leading into wrong paths, and I often see that happening. Fundamental understanding of how technology and tools work is super important for innovation. That's the second message that I have for you. That as we build technology and we expect innovation, we need to understand how the tool works. What are the underlying factors of how the tool will work for us to use these technologies efficiently, effectively to innovate. Without that deep understanding, it is not possible to innovate, or you will think that you're innovating, but you may not necessarily be innovating. So the two messages, therefore, that I have for you are very simple. It's important to build underlying technologies which will help you innovate. And it is also very important to understand how the underlying technology works. Why was the Maxwell story important? It's because in what is called the Gen AI, which is in fad, and in what's called NLP, which was in fad a couple of years ago, there was this use of methodology called vectorization, where English is translated into numbers which are representative vectors. And the match of these vectors enables technologies like NLP and now Gen AI work. But if you do not understand what an angle is, or what a vector is, and how do you converge a question vector to an answer vector, and how you can build solutions based on the deep understanding of how these things work, you will be cracking problems at a very superficial level. So, in the end, I will say this. Two important keynotes. We think that technology innovations need tools that needs to be built, and a deep understanding of tools are necessary for us to innovate, without which we will not be able to innovate. Those are my two reflections and two keynotes. Thank you very much. I'll give you back your time. Have a great evening.
May I request Mr. Manas Das, Senior Director, Operations Intel, to kindly come on stage. Mr. Manas Das. Please present a token of our gratitude to Mr. Murali Subramaniam. Big round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. May I now request Mr. Sri Krishnan Venkateshwaran, Kyndryl Fellow, CTO, Kyndryl India, to kindly come on stage and make your presentation. That's Mr. Sri Krishnan Venkateshwaran. A big round of applause, ladies and gentlemen.
Hi. Good afternoon, good evening, everyone. My pleasure and honor to speak with such an august audience today. We'll talk about quantum computing. That's the topic for today. So imagine waking up one day to find that all data that secures India's economy is no longer safe. This is not science fiction. The risk is real as quantum computing is racing ahead. But with every great challenge, there are big opportunities. So what if the same technology can revolutionize India's agriculture by improving weather predictions? What if it can reimagine healthcare to India's vast and diverse population by bringing in personalized medicine? And what if it can transform the energy grids in India? So let's explore how quantum can disrupt as well as elevate India in the next few years. So let's start with what Q day is. So Q day marks the point in time at which quantum computers, they become powerful enough to break all current encryption systems. Now, there was something called Moore's law that we all grew up with, and roughly what it said was every 2 years or 18 months or so, the computing power will just double. And that held for 50 years until about the mid-2010s, about mid-2015, 2016 timeframe. Now, quantum computing, that operates in totally different principles. Right? Think of it as a Moore's law on steroids. So it will see a steeper growth trajectory than Moore's law ever predicted. So imagine trading your bicycle for a rocket. Yeah, so instead of incremental gains, it's going to offer leaps in capability. Right? So there are both challenges as well as benefits out of this. Now, if I can ask you to guess, which industries do you think will be disrupted by quantum imminently? Any guesses? Okay, I would say, see, this is a McKinsey report, a recent report. So what this says is as early as next year, 2025, banking systems, financial systems, as well as government defense systems, they are at risk. And in general, any critical infrastructure, if an infrastructure is critical and at the national level, people have an incentive to disrupt it, and that disruption can cause agony. So, regulatory pressure is also a challenge. So this is the landscape. Now, what has changed in the last 3 months, right? So several new things have happened in the last 2 or 3 months that have made Q day more imminent than it was earlier. First of all, the US National Institutes of Standards and Technology, NIST, they standardized what are called post-quantum cryptography or PQC. What is PQC in a sentence? PQC stands for encryption methods that are designed to resist attacks from quantum computers. That's what PQC is, and that got standardized. And within 3 weeks of that, Google released a version of Chrome that supports PQC under the HTTPS protocol. And then digital certificate providers like DigiCert, they have started to offer quantum resistant, quantum safe digital certificates. Gartner has recently predicted that by the year 2029, advances in quantum that will make most conventional encryption algorithms obsolete. So essentially that is where we are. And look at other recent developments. Google released this quantum computer called Sycamore, which has achieved what is called quantum supremacy, which means they took a problem, in this case it's called the random circuit sampling problem. In a conventional supercomputer it takes 10,000 years to solve, in a quantum computer it takes 200 seconds to solve. Chinese researchers recently cracked what is called RSA-50, which think of it as a simplified version of the encryption algorithms that are used to protect all our digital systems. That was cracked as an indicator of what true quantum could do. And then this is IBM's quantum roadmap. By 2030, they are going to hit thousands of qubits. Just yesterday, it was about 18 hours back, Microsoft in their Ignite, they, in collaboration with the Atom computers, they have announced that quantum will be commercially available as early as next year, that is just 2025. About 1,000 qubits of power there. Now, see, let's dig deeper to understand how exactly quantum poses a challenge to encryption systems and by extension to India's digital economy. First, something called asymmetric key encryption. So what is asymmetric key encryption? In that, data is secured using two keys. There is a public key, there is a private key, right? Public key to encode, private key to decode. Think of it like a mailbox. Anybody can put mail on your mailbox because it's publicly accessible, but only you can take the mail out addressed to you because only you have the key. But now think of quantum as a master locksmith that has a phantom key that can unlock any mailbox and take your mail out, right, without your private key. So that's the danger there. Now, if we move to this other category of encryption algorithms called symmetric key encryption algorithms. What is symmetric encryption algorithms? The same key to lock and unlock, right? The sender and the receiver share the same key. Now, it is like, consider having a treasure chest. It is a lock. The same key is used to lock and unlock. Now, what does quantum do to it? With the power of quantum, the time needed to guess the key, right? The search to guess the key, that reduces drastically to the square root of the time required originally, right? Earlier, if it needed t seconds to guess for a conventional supercomputer, it needs square root of the time if you have it quantum. Now, a combination of these two algorithms, that asymmetric and symmetric, they power internet today. So if you see HTTPS on your browser, that is a combination of asymmetric and symmetric. Asymmetric is used to exchange the keys and establish a connection. And once the connection is established, the data exchange is through symmetric key algorithms. And like I told you, with quantum, both of these methods are at risk, right? Great risk. Well, let's look at a third category of risks, which is imminent, which is already a possibility today, which is called harvest now, decrypt later. What that means is an attacker, let's say they intercept encrypted data. They don't know to decrypt it. They just have encrypted data and they just store it and wait until quantum computers arrive. So if that data that is encrypted has longevity, like a PAN number or an Aadhaar number or in a date of birth and such, that is at risk already. Think of it like, let's say there is a conversation, a secret conversation in the room in a language that you don't understand, but you record it. Or you intercept a letter that is written in a language that you don't understand. You intercept it, keep it with you, and then wait until you find the translation algorithm, right, and translation key, and then you can crack it, right? Crack the code. Now, a fourth category is called hashing algorithms. In India, e-sign, the digital signatures, e-stamping, and there are several other use cases that use hashing. With quantum, you could easily do fake digital signatures or create look-alike fingerprints or create counterfeit documents so that they all map, right? This counterfeit and the original will generate the same hash digest. It's a tough problem to solve mathematically for a conventional, even a supercomputer, but for quantum computers, that is easy. So this is the reason why digital systems in India and worldwide are vulnerable to quantum. So just to make it real, see this cryptography, what we discussed is scattered everywhere. You just look hard enough and you'll find some cryptography. There is data in transit, which means each time you go to a browser, you do HTTPS, you access your bank account, etc. That data is encrypted, or you do a VPN from your company, or you do an SSH. All of that is data in motion. data at rest, your disk is encrypted, or your email is encrypted, or you use QR codes, right? UPI QR codes that has asymmetric key encryption algorithms, and so on. If you patch your system, right there is an encryption to verify the validity of the patch. So essentially, it is everywhere. So what is the fix? Short term. So right now we have a castle, right? And what we have to do the short term is reinforce the existing defenses, maybe increase the key lengths and such. But the real solution is to build a new fort, right, with quantum safe capabilities, like using this post-quantum cryptography algorithms or technologies like quantum key distribution, QKD, and so on. So building a new fort, replacing the citadel that you have with quantum safe algorithms is the long-term fix. But to do that migration, you have to start with visibility into your assets. You need to know you have to do a crypto discovery, right? What assets do you have that leverage and exploit, cryptography? And which algorithms, which protocols, which libraries, and so on. And once you do that, you need a strategy to migrate, because migration also can take time. By the time you end the migration, it should be before the Q day hits, right? Before the quantum age dawns. So you have to start. There are legacy protocols, and these quantum protocols are under standardization, so there are multiple generations of those protocols, so you have to ensure backward compatibility, interoperability, all of that. So there is a curve there to do, post-quantum cryptography and quantum safety. Now, we discussed the challenges. Now let's take a quick peek at the opportunities that quantum computing holds, right? Because this is like a transformative power. Because you see, there is inherent parallelism in quantum, right? So with quantum, you could check multiple possibilities simultaneously. Like for example, in drug discovery, the penicillin drug that has 41 atoms, right? And the number of interactions between, this is for drug discovery, you find the interactions between the atoms and molecules. So if you have 41 atoms, you have 2 to the power of 41 possible combinations. And that is kind of square root of the number of atoms in the universe. It's a very big number, suffice it to say. So with classical computers, it's beyond the reach of classical computers. Typical drug discovery takes 25 years. With quantum, since it can examine multiple states simultaneously, this becomes reachable, right, and fast. And there are certain categories of problems like risk modeling or optimization problems. There are several which you'll look at the next chart specific to India that quantum is powerful to solve. There is a sweet spot there. And also there is no need to wait until you get a quantum computer to try out quantum algorithms. Already there are GPUs. NVIDIA has a CUDA Q on the cloud. So you could actually simulate some of the quantum algorithms right now today. And there are many, many companies worldwide who are already doing it. New drugs are being discovered, new materials are being discovered by large companies. Now, if you look at India specifically, Indian Defense, Indian Navy is already deploying quantum safe networks. Healthcare and biotech, it can be a game changer for us. We have a vast, diverse population. What if we can get personalized medicine with quantum? Big deal for us. Agriculture, this is, millions of Indians, are employed by this sector. And if you can enhance crop yield by predicting the weather accurately. Yesterday I was in Delhi, we had this smog and pollution. So the modeling needed to pinpoint on the root cause, extremely complex. It needs huge amount of calculations and such. So all of that will become, incredibly within reach. Financial modeling, right? Fraud detection. I mean, our entire economy is, hinging. Our financial future is hinging on digital India, and even there, quantum machine learning and fraud detection can change the game for us. Traffic optimization is a big problem. EVs and renewable energy. There is material discovery going on to discover new batteries that can last long. Energy management for India's grid and renewables and such. So on the one hand, we have challenges to surmount in terms of our encryption and the data being vulnerable to quantum, and we need to upgrade our encryption protocol so that they are quantum safe. On the other hand, we have to exploit quantum to the hilt, right? So 2047 is a special year for India. It is a centenary of our independence. It is also the year when Vikasit Bharat, right, culminates. There is a goal of India becoming a $32 trillion economy. And even by the most conservative estimates, we will be well into the quantum age, much before 2047. So this entire transformation over the next few years will have not just be aware of quantum, it has to leverage quantum, to the hilt. India already the government has announced a national quantum mission, or NQM, in 2023. We also have a startup ecosystem now. There are at least a dozen, startups in the quantum space in India. So we have the opportunity. We not only to secure our data, which is a must, but to lead the revolution, not just in India, but globally. And this kind of decisions and this kind of investments that we make today is going to shape and define our technology future. So that's all I had for today. Thank you all.
A big round of applause, ladies and gentlemen, to Mr. Sri Krishnan Venkateshwaran, Kyndryl Fellow, CTO, Kyndryl India. May I now request Mr. Bhaskar Verma, Regional Director, NASSCOM, to kindly do the honors and present a token of our gratitude to Mr. Sri Krishnan. May I now request Mr. Ed Schlesinger, Benjamin T. Rome Dean and Professor at Johns Hopkins University. A big round of applause to Mr. Ed Schlesinger. Ladies and gentlemen, a big round of applause as we welcome Mr. Ed Schlesinger onto the podium for his presentation.
So it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for giving me a few moments to talk to you about Technovations disrupting various industry sectors. Obviously, we're talking about the future, and in talking about the future, one should keep in mind the old adage that making predictions is very difficult, especially of the future. And this has been proven to be true time and again. We see it in innovation, in aviation, when Lord Kelvin said that he doesn't put much stock in heavier-than-air flight, and of course 33 years later he was proven wrong. Octave Keynote in 1910 said that there's no commercial viability for aviation, and only 16 years later he was proven wrong. When it comes to communication, Lee DeForest said that television doesn't have a future, and it turns out that 2 years later he was proven wrong. And then when it came to space technologies, the Astronomer Royal in 1956 said that space travel is utter bilge, only to be proven wrong 1 year later. The message of this is that the time between prediction and being proven wrong is getting shorter and shorter and shorter. So, with that caution in mind, what can we say with some certainty? What we can say is that more than ever before, technology is changing all aspects of how people live. There is no human activity today that is not some way affected by technology. Technology has always brought change to the world, positive and negative, has created dangers. Predicting exactly how things will change is of course impossible, but predicting that change and dislocation will occur is a certainty, and this is not new. When Gutenberg invented movable type, the world changed. Books suddenly were published in the vernacular. Latin was replaced as the language that was spoken by scholars. Authorship suddenly mattered. Pages were numbered. Communication changes. One could even say that revolutions were fomented because of the availability of written literature. And what's interesting is that Gutenberg, like all entrepreneurs, thought he knew what the world wanted. That's why he printed Bibles, because he said, what book would be more desired than a Bible? And he was absolutely wrong. He actually went bankrupt. His brother-in-law bought his equipment, and it turns out that indulgences is what the world wanted, and that's what actually made money. Let's talk about cars. There is a universal trend amongst all countries that as the per capita GDP increases, the number of vehicles in a society increases, at first linearly, and then it saturates out at around 850 vehicles per 1,000 population, 1,000 inhabitants in the country. India is on the beginning of this slope. Notwithstanding the traffic here in Bangalore, India right now does not have 850 vehicles per 1,000 inhabitants, but it's on the trend. What does that mean to have all these vehicles in a country? It means that people die. Imagine that every day, year-round, 17 mid-sized passenger airplanes carrying about 180 people crashed, killing everyone on board. Every day. That would be intolerable. But that's actually what happens today in the world in vehicle traffic deaths. About 1.2 million people are killed every year in traffic deaths. Over 150,000 in India, over 42,000 in the United States. It's the leading cause of death for children and young adults. 92% of the world's fatalities occur in middle-income countries, even though they only have 60% of the world's vehicles. More than half of all traffic deaths are amongst vulnerable and road users. And road traffic accidents cost most countries about 3% of their gross domestic product. So more vehicles, more deaths, more cost. What are we going to do about that? Well, I believe that self-driving cars that have been mentioned before in one of these speeches, in one of these presentations, is going to solve that problem. As an engineer, I don't think that's the case. I know that's going to be the case. Self-driving cars will, after all, be engineered in such a way that they will be better than human drivers. And so we will save millions of lives because of self-driving cars. And more than that, self-driving cars will bring all sorts of other benefits. They'll increase mobility for an aging population, and that's going to help reduce the cost of medical care and allow older adults to remain independent. Because they're programmed and tested and optimized for performance, we're going to decrease traffic jams. There will be less fuel consumption. They will increase human productivity because of the time that humans can spend in the cars doing something more useful. We'll no longer need parking spaces in cities because ride-sharing services will use their cars 24/7. And resources will be saved because why would you have to park a car if it's able to drive itself? It'll be used all the time. So the benefits are enormous. The lives saved are enormous. What's the problem? The problem is, and these are numbers for the United States, millions and millions of people in the United States, a country with 1/4 the population of India, are employed as drivers. Driving as a profession is one of the leading occupations in more than half of the US states. According to the American Trucking Association, in addition to the drivers, 8.5 million people are employed throughout the economy in jobs that relate to trucking activity. And then there's Uber and similar ride-sharing services. All these people are going to be put out of work. Millions of people are going to be put out of work. What are we going to do about that? What are they going to do? What's going to happen in societies when self-driving cars bring the benefits that they can bring? And it's happening now. This disruption isn't in the future. Waymo is logging 150,000 robo-taxi rides and 1 million miles a week. That's 150,000 rides a week that was not given by a human driver who would have been employed to provide those those rides. And it's happening in other fields as well. In medicine, diagnosis is happening, is being advanced because of medical data. And you might say, okay, diagnosis, but certainly not surgery. And most recently at Hopkins, robots that simply watched videos learned how to perform surgery with the skills of a human doctor. So that's being disrupted. In education, this is a 14th century manuscript that shows Henry of Germany delivering a lecture to university students in Bologna. If you look at this picture, you will see that for many, many educational institutions, this is an accurate representation of a classroom today. Look at the front row. All the students are engaged and their books are open. Look at the back row. The students are talking to each other. One of the students is asleep. If this was a modern picture, there'd be only one thing different. This student would have an iPhone that they're looking at instead of being asleep. Education is being disrupted. In 2016 already, Georgia Tech introduced Jill Watson, an AI-based teaching assistant. The first time they introduced Jill Watson, they didn't tell the students that she was an AI. And I know from colleagues there that at the end of the semester, the students nominated her for a Best TA award before they were told that she was an AI, because they felt that she always answered the questions because she never sleeps. The disruption is happening now. Chegg is a company that you may or may not have heard about. It's an education technology company based in Santa Clara. It was supposed to provide homework help for students. Since ChatGPT, Chegg, their stock is down 99%. They've lost 500,000 subscriptions. That company is going away because of ChatGPT. This is a recent email I received from a colleague at Johns Hopkins, Rama Chalapa, one of our leading computer scientists, who was giving a course to the students on image processing. He gave his midterm to ChatGPT. It scored an A+. It produced the solution set for the class. Who are we teaching? What are we teaching? How are we assessing our students? Why are we teaching what we're teaching? These are profound questions that we need to answer. And it's beyond even education. In movies and television, some of you may remember that in 1977, Star Wars came out. And one of the characters there was Peter Cushing, was played by Peter Cushing. He played a character called Grand Moff Tarkin. And he reprised his role in Rogue One that was released in 2016. Peter Cushing once again played that Grand Moff Tarkin role. The only difference was that he had died in 1994. He was an AI. And so the entertainment industry is worried about what's going to happen to acting and actors in the age of AI. And which institutions are going to be responsible for this disruption? Yellow Cab never introduced Uber, and Capitol Records didn't create iTunes, and Marriott Hotels didn't create Airbnb, and Borders Books, whom you've probably never heard of, didn't create Amazon, and Rand McNally didn't create Waze. And so institutions that we think of as very powerful and important are going away. So what are the lessons that I would suggest that are very important to keep in mind? Technologies, advances in technology can empower individuals and place in the hand of individuals capabilities previously controlled by the institutions. When Gutenberg created the movable type to produce books, he suddenly took books away from the Lord of the Manor and the church and put it in the hands of individuals. And so institutions must understand that what they believe they control, or whether they think they have where they think they have an exclusive capability, is not the case. Technology changes the world in areas where we might have believed disruptive change is not possible. Changes that many may have believed will take years or decades can occur overnight. And societal and institutional dislocations and disruptions have consequences, and we must be prepared to lead and shape and respond to these. Some disruptions are good, some are going to be challenging. What are we going to do about all the people in the United States and in India and around the world who earn their salary through driving? This is going away, and it's going away quickly. At Hopkins, our response is to invest dramatically in AI and data science, not to try to avoid it, but to try to lead it. Our institution is investing at a scale that we believe will position us as the United States' leading epicenter of research and education dedicated to the application, the understanding, the collection, and the risks of data and the development of machine learning and artificial intelligence systems. We are hiring 150 new faculty members in AI, in machine learning, jointly between engineering and other parts of the university. We're building out 500,000 square feet of new space to house these people. We are investing in what we believe will be the preeminent academic computing infrastructure in the United States. And we're not only focused on the foundations of data science and AI, but we're talking about how this is going to transform medicine, how it's going to accelerate scientific discovery, how we're going to change engineering systems, how security and safety will be affected, and how policies will be made, and how policies will control AI and data systems and data science. So, in the future, in order to realize the promise and not the peril of AI and data science, we're going to need engineers and technologists, but we're going to need the humanists, the ethicists, the artists, the attorneys, the economists, the teachers, the natural scientists, the social scientists, the policy experts, the business leaders. We're going to all have to understand how we are going to deal with a world that is going to change dramatically. And these changes are going to lead to new laws, new policies, the creation of new industries, great benefits, but also great challenges. One of my favorite quotes is by the moral philosopher Stein, who said, "In a world of change, the learners will inherit the earth. The learned will find themselves beautifully equipped for a world that no longer exists." Thank you.
A big round of applause, ladies and gentlemen, to Mr. Ed Schlesinger. May I request Mr. Jagdish Patankar, founder and managing director, Active Science Tech Communications, to kindly present a token of our appreciation to Mr. Ed Schlesinger. Thank you. We have a very special guest now. Please put your hands together, ladies and gentlemen, as I welcome Her Excellency Miss Lindy Cameron, British High Commissioner to the Republic of India. A big round of applause, please.
Wonderful. Thank you very much indeed for having me here today. As your colleague said, my name is Lindy Cameron. I'm the British High Commissioner to India, having been here 7 months. But I also, in a former life, was the CEO of the UK's National Cybersecurity Centre, and that's probably as much why I'm here today as my role as British High Commissioner. So I'm delighted to be in Bangalore, not least because having escaped from Delhi, you can probably hear by my throat that I'm delighted to be in the fresh air and wonderful climate here in Bangalore. But I'm also really excited to be here in India because I think it's a really genuinely exciting time to be here. And I'm excited about the collaboration that we've had with India on cybersecurity over the last few years. The UK is really proud of being a leading nation, a top 5 nation in innovation, artificial intelligence, and cybersecurity, and a major power in science and technology. We aim to be at the forefront of global regulation on technology, cybersecurity, digital, and data, protecting our and our fellow democracies' security, and establishing a leading edge in critical technologies. The UK demonstrated that, I think, through our innovation in creating the National Cybersecurity Centre, and I was very proud to be its second CEO. It's a really innovative part of the UK government, which is both at the same time part of the UK's intelligence services, part of GCHQ, but also simultaneously an incredibly public-facing part of the UK government that deals directly with business and individuals, helping to build resilience in our society. And we set it up like that because we saw the potential for disruption of cybersecurity, and rather than fearing that, we wanted to run towards it and see it as an opportunity for the UK. But we're also very proud of the fact that the UK does that in partnership with international partners like India, with industry, and with other stakeholders to ensure that transparency and accountability are embedded right from the outset in the design and deployment of new technologies. The UK model was about taking the absolute best of our understanding and insight from our partners and turning that into advice and guidance that everybody could follow. You didn't need to be a deep tech expert to understand that cybersecurity was something you needed to understand and something that you could do something about. We took that model and worked in partnership primarily with business. It was another example of thinking about the government's role and the fact that in many ways government's role was to convene rather than to do everything. Some of my proudest moments in NCSC were when government stood back and concluded it no longer needed to be at the forefront because the private sector was providing those services instead. And that was true as much internationally as it was in the UK. So as I say, we were really proud of the key role that we played in innovation and technology, and indeed in making that accessible for the UK public, and in creating the understanding that cybersecurity was a huge business opportunity if you got it right, albeit a huge threat to profitability if you got it wrong. But we were also really proud of the partnership we had with India in this space, and I think India is globally significant in cybersecurity, not least because, as you can see today at this kind of summit, the scale of India's influence in the global tech ecosystem is and is going to be absolutely massive. The technologies, and in particular the low-cost technology that India innovates in, will scale globally. And that means that the cybersecurity that is built into India's products and services will be something on which the rest of the world depends. In cybersecurity, we've seen that many of the foundational building blocks of the internet are the things that create the challenges in cybersecurity that we deal with today. And so there is a huge responsibility for product designers and for developers to build cybersecurity right into the heart of their products in order to ensure that our successors in 20 years' time don't face some of the same challenges we do. So we hugely value that partnership with India, partly because of its global reach, but partly also because of the innovation, the excitement in the room today, the scale and sense of what's possible, the sense of building an India for tomorrow, an India for 2047, I think is really palpable. And together, I think we can help to create the strategies the new security challenges need in order to address some of those technological challenges, but including also the challenges for rights, advocating for a free, open, peaceful and secure cyberspace, ensuring a digital environment that supports innovation and growth for all citizens. Because don't get me wrong, the challenge is big. When I was the CEO of the National Cybersecurity Centre, we saw a significant increase in the threat. And that wasn't just the kind of threat we see from state actors. And the UK is clear that we see a range of state actors active in cyberspace: Russia, China, North Korea, and Iran in particular. But we also saw a really significant threat from ransomware. And I think in particular, ransomware is the kind of challenge that businesses face and need to understand. The costs to businesses of ransomware are absolutely extraordinary. The World Economic Forum estimated that the cost of cybercrime globally would reach $24 trillion a year by 2027, up from an already eye-watering $8 trillion in 2022, not long after I started in NCSC. NCSC assesses ransomware attacks as potentially as harmful to the UK as direct state-sponsored espionage, partly because the successful impact of an attack has critical impacts on our national infrastructure, and in particular key services, electricity, telecoms, on which other CNI is dependent. I've talked to some of you in the room about the utter criticality of time sensitivity in financial services, of data in other services, all of which, if disrupted, can lead to service losses, loss of data, inaccessible public services, compromised customer data that both create real losses to business but also create a loss of confidence for the public. So cybersecurity is a really, really critical issue for all businesses. And one of the things that I worried about as CEO was that in many ways the risk is that the tech industry risks making this a geek subject. It risks making it something that you have to be an expert in. I can sell you one app, I can sell you one service, and it'll just fix it. But actually, our approach to cybersecurity in the UK is about building a level of resilience that demystifies, that makes it accessible, that makes it something that every business can understand. If you understand what services and products you rely on, you can work out the impact of one of them being switched off. And frankly, that switch off can happen as a result of a power outage, or it can be the result of a cyber attack. But doing that kind of planning, the resilience planning to allow you to understand what happens, what the what if is the kind of thing that allows you to prepare, to work out how much you should invest in making yourself resilient. Because of course the technology is ever changing. We saw, even in my time in the job, a really significant evolution in technology, a change in dependence in different parts of the world. The AI revolution alone, not necessarily just the change in the actual technology and its potential, but the change in popular understanding of what was possible through AI. And you could see companies, HR departments, ops departments, beginning to understand what they could do, but absolutely critically needing to build security into the heart of what they were thinking was possible right from the beginning. And that's one of the things that we were really proud to emphasize as part of the UK AI Safety Summit, which we ran in Bletchley Park more than a year ago now. So as I say, the challenge is really big. But on the other hand, I think resilience really is the key answer. And it is something that I think is an accessible issue that all of us can work on. And I'm really proud to have met some fantastic partners here today and to have seen the amazing delegation that we have with us from the UK here in Bangalore today, bringing ideas with them, but also co-creating ideas with people they meet here at this conference. So I think there are huge opportunities in cybersecurity. It's a really exciting moment, but it's also an exciting moment for skill building. As the UK High Commissioner, I'm really proud of the fact that the University of Southampton, one of the leading experts in cybersecurity in the UK, has just announced the opening of a campus next year in Delhi in order to be one of the first universities, in fact the first university, to take advantage of the liberalisation of the Indian higher education market to start to educate University of Southampton students here in India. And there is a really, really big opportunity for us to partner in education as much as in cybersecurity to build the skills for tomorrow, whether that's in conventional undergraduate and master's courses, or whether that's as part of distance learning and online education. Because skills are an absolutely key part of driving towards a more resilient society. So I wanted to say a huge thank you for having me. It's been an incredibly exciting day to be here in Bangalore, an incredibly exciting moment to be here in India, and really a wonderful moment to look at the UK-India partnership. We have a new government in the UK. My Foreign Secretary visited in July, less than 3 weeks after the UK government was elected, and one of the first things he did was to announce a new technology and security initiative, which allows us to partner both government to government, but also business to business, research partner to research partner, to try and build the foundations for an even closer collaboration between the UK and India on both technology and security for the future. It lays out a set of sectors, quantum, cybersecurity, artificial intelligence, and more, in which we plan to work together to make sure that we are using the cutting-edge research in both India and the UK for the benefit of ourselves and the benefit of the world. We see it as foundational for UK and Indian growth, but also for UK and Indian security, and indeed for the prosperity of the world. So it's a very exciting moment to be here. It's an exciting moment to be partnering with India. And I'd like to say thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk a little bit about cybersecurity, the UK approach, and how exciting the future is for us in this space. Thank you very much indeed.
Yes, in the middle. Ladies and gentlemen, a big round of applause to Her Excellency Miss Lindy Cameron, British High Commissioner to the Republic of India. May I now invite Mr. Jagdish Patankar, who is the founder managing director of Active Science Tech Communications. So I would also like to let you know that Mr. Patankar and his organization is integrally involved in the conceptualization of this event from inception to execution. So a big round of applause, ladies and gentlemen, to Mr. Patankar. Do kindly come on stage, sir. I would also like to invite Mr. Chandru K. Iyer, who is Deputy High Commissioner for Karnataka and Kerala. Big round of applause to him as well. I'm inviting both of them to do the honors to Her Excellency as a symbolic, as a symbol of the growing unity and collaboration between these two countries. So, maybe once again, have a big round of applause. Her Excellency Miss Lindy Cameron being honored by Mr. Jagdish Patankar and Mr. Chandru K. Iyer. Well, thank you. We will begin the next session in just a couple of